You're welcome back to Morning Express. Now let's have our next guest join us virtually, Anayo Adibe, Esquire, who is a principal partner, Anayo Adibe and Partners. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for finding the time to join the program and talk national matters.
Good morning, my brother, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, let's delve right into it. We have just a few minutes to talk about this. Yesterday, we saw at the Federal High Court in Abuja a sentencing handed over to Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the independent indigenous people of Biafra. This was handed over by Justice James Omotosho. This has also sparked reactions from different groups and individuals. We hear that leaders in the southeast are rallying for political solution towards this, while the legal counsel to Nnamdi Kanu have said that they would appeal the ruling. As a legal practitioner, what is your assessment of first the trial and then the end of the trial, which ended with a life sentence?
Well, I'll take it from two major points of view, legally speaking.
All right.
And the first one is that now we have closure. The trial is one that has been protracted for a very long time, and it is I would say it's some kind of rewarding to find out that at least it has come to an end. Now, as for the decision too is inevitable, because if you look at what played out at the trial, especially when Nnamdi Kanu decided to disengage his lawyers, what he succeeded in doing was to hasten the outcome of the trial. We have a system of criminal administration which is adversarial in nature. The accused or whoever is accusing someone is expected to produce evidence against the person you are accusing. Then the person that is being accused is also supposed to do what? To rebuff or put up a defense to those allegations. And where the allegations are not denied, where the evidence brought by the prosecution are not contradicted, it only makes it a lot easier for the judge to reach a conclusion. And in this case, the conclusion was not surprising, because if they had said he did all these things that he was alleged to have done, and he didn't put up any defense whatsoever to it, then it is obvious that it could only go one way, because now there are always two scales. The scale of justice is two ways. So if the prosecution puts something on his own side of the way, and on the other side of the scale there's nothing on it, of course the judge will take that of the prosecution, and that is exactly what played out in court yesterday. So it was not surprising at all.
Well, interesting take there, Esquire. However, we have seen reactions like Mr. Abiodun, whom I had spoken to just a few minutes ago, reactions concerning the judgment that was meted on Mazen Nnamdi Kanu in relation to how individuals like Sunday Igboho were treated, and how persons like Sheikh Gumi are being, handled with baby gloves and not being treated the same way that Nnamdi Kanu is being treated. Could we say that this has some level of maybe political, ethnic or tribal connotation to it at this time? Because that is what the Ndibo are feeling at the moment.
Well, I'll only be speaking as a lawyer. And as a lawyer, it is very important that we cannot have a substitute to the supremacy of the rule of law. And the rule of law is one that entails that everybody should be subject to the law. Nobody should be above the law, whether irrespective of your tribe, irrespective of your political consideration, irrespective of your economic consideration. Everybody should be made to be under the law. So we have problems like this come up when we decide to make judgment, or when we decide to make the law selective which is what I guess what most people are complaining about. That if people are doing worse things in other regions, why is the government not doing what it should do, which is bring them to book? So when government fails to carry out that very sacrosanct responsibility, then it leaves room for people to make conjectures like this. So if we want to talk, let us look at it on the basis of this is a matter that has been brought to court and it has ended. What I would say as a legal practitioner is that the law should be it should not respect any person. Nobody should be above the law. What is good for the goose should also be good for the gander. So it is something that should cut across board and not just make it selective and say, okay. And the saying generally now is that if perhaps Nnamdi Kanu were to be from the north, Muslim north, an example, that it shouldn't have ended this way. And that it is because he is from the southeast that is why it played out like this. But let me also tell you as a lawyer, irrespective of who had true trial, everything that transpired in that particular trial, if it had been any other place, it would have ended the same way. The result was just inevitable.
All right. Well, individuals like Senator Abaribe had mentioned that justice in Nigeria is not, I'm quoting him now, justice in Nigeria is not for the Southeast. While former Senate President Nwabara had also lent his voice to the ruling yesterday by saying that Ndibo are now imprisoned for life. These are two elder statesmen from the Southeast and who also have, particular concern regarding the Nnamdi Kanu's trial that had lasted for about 10 years. How do you think the Igbo people are feeling? I know you want to speak from a legal point of view and as a lawyer, but as an Igbo person and also somebody who is from the Southeast, whether or not you have been a supporter of Nnamdi Kanu, how do you think the atmosphere is like right now for the Ndibo and indeed the entire Southeast?
Well, in fact, while the judgment was going on yesterday, I got quite a number of calls from my kinsmen back home, and everybody was I can tell you that the tension in the southeast yesterday was quite very high. It was quite very high, and when the conviction was eventually pronounced, some of my very good friends, particularly those in places like Onitsha, Aba, called and they said practically almost every bar was closed yesterday because it was just a day of gloom throughout the southeast. Nobody was happy about it. And I told them, why shouldn't they be happy? At least they will have closure so that if there are other possibilities, if there are other things that we can explore to resolve the issue, now will be the time to start exploring them. And mind you, the government had always come out to say that this matter is before the judiciary and that there is this notion of separation of powers. Allow the judiciary to do its job. When they are done with their job, perhaps when it comes to us as the executive, then we will see how we can resolve the matter. So thank God that of the judiciary has been taken care of. The judiciary has completed its own job. Now it is in the purview of the executive, which I know we should be happy about. Happy in the sense that perhaps we are beginning to get to the beginning of the end of this entire saga. So that when we put them in proper context, you now discover that now we have come to the end of one road. It is the time to begin another road. And which road are we going to begin now? It is time to begin the road to reconciliation, genuine reconciliation, and perhaps unity of the country. The Southeast is a major part of this country. The country cannot afford to have a crisis in the Southeast, a crisis that might snowball out of control. So I know, and I am very sure, the authorities are listening, and I know they will definitely find a political solution to it. As regards Senator Abaribe's statement and that of the elder statesman Adolphus Nwabura, well, they are well in their right to have stated what they stated. But the fact remains that the way we are going, the way the justice system is being run in Nigeria, it appears selective. Selective in the sense that while you use the sledgehammer on a particular section of the country, when the same scenario is painted out in another section, you do what? You get they get a pat on the back for it. So that is just where the Southeast felt that no, they are just getting the wrong side of the short end of the stick, as it were.
Now, as a lawyer, from your perspective, is this a ruling that is appealable?
Definitely, definitely. He still has the right to appeal to the Court of Appeal, and after the Court of Appeal, he still also has the right to appeal to the Supreme Court, where, of course, they say is the final bus stop. So it is not the end of the road yet, legally speaking.
So in retrospect, we are basically looking at yet another long legal battle or legal tussle that might take yet another decade, just like the first trial did.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. You see, the Court of Appeal, what the Court of Appeal does is to look at the grounds upon which the appellant is appealing. You look at it vis-a-vis what was presented at the trial and make a decision. The Court of Appeal, the matter might not even spend up to 6 months at the Court of Appeal. Mind you, this is a criminal matter. If it were a civil matter, it can drag on, but not as long as it had at trial. The Court of Appeal is, they don't call witnesses at the Court of Appeal. What the Court of Appeal does is to look at the processes, look at the evidence that was brought before the court, and look at the decision of the court, and marry both of them and say the evidence that was brought before the trial court and the decision that was eventually reached, do they correlate? Is it something that should stand in law? So that is basically what the Court of Appeal does. So if you want to look at how long this can last, in the next 1-2 years, it can be sorted out even at the Supreme Court. It is not something that will take time as it had at the trial.
Now, part of the comments made by the federal government after the ruling yesterday was that the FG was expecting a death sentence for Nnamdi Kanu, but because, of course, the international community, the UN, frowns upon death sentences worldwide, the court decided to, rather than a death sentence, issue a life imprisonment sentence on Nnamdi Kanu. Do you think that the federal government is rather a little too extreme in how it's reacted to the sentencing and what it is or what it was asking the court to do?
Well, if I were part of the prosecution team, I would have done practically the same thing, because that is what the law provides.
Yeah.
But the sentencing is at the discretion of the judge. So while Nnamdi Kanu, if you had lawyers yesterday, what the lawyers will be pleading was, they will be pleading for a complete acquittal, that he be discharged and acquitted, while the prosecution will be asking for the extreme, which is in this case the death penalty. But at the end of the day, it is the judge who stands in the middle as the arbiter that will decide, because it is at his own discretion to determine what punishment to mete out to the convicts. And that is where it has nothing to do with whatever anybody says. It is purely the judge's discretion. And the judge decided, like he said, if you listen to his judgment yesterday, the judge said that he's somebody who does not believe in the death penalty, and that he decided to use his conscience and say, instead of the death penalty, I'd rather give life imprisonment. And that is exactly what he did yesterday.
Well, this appeal that we were talking about, you said that if it goes to the appeal court, it might not take up to 6 months, and then the case would be resolved entirely. But do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for an individual like Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, a leader of a very strong group like IPOB? At the end of the day, don't you think that jailing him for life might also stir up more controversy and more problem that we're already seeing in the Southeast? And also, are we seeing him maybe getting a less harsher punishment at the end of the day after going to the appeal court?
Well, what will happen at the appeal court is either of two things. It is either the court of appeal sets aside the judgment of the high court, that is of the federal high court now, and declare him not guilty there, and consequently discharge and acquit him. Or the court of appeal will, on the other hand, agree with the decision. The court of appeal will agree with the decision of the judge of the federal high court that was delivered yesterday and uphold that conviction. Then if Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers also appeal against the severity of the sentence, they will definitely look at that, and if they agree with the judgment, they can reduce the punishment or even increase it or even make it a death penalty, as the case may be. So it is neither here nor there. It only depends on what is presented before the court of appeal, and that is what they will look at. They don't consider extraneous factors. They will look at what is presented before them and give a judgment on that.
Well, interesting. We have just a couple of minutes to let you go, Barca. The Southeast leaders that have voiced out their concerns or their disappointment, rather, over this ruling. I had mentioned Senator Anayo Adibe and as well as elder statesman Chief Adolphus Nwabara. But we also hear that groups like the Ohanaeze Ndigbo are rallying support, political support, to find a solution to this. Is this a move rather a little too late, considering the fact that they could have done all of this before the sentencing to ensure that, the solution that they are now looking for would have been found a long time ago before now?
Well, I think there couldn't have been a better time for a political solution than now, when judgment has been entered, the matter at the high court, as it were, has been concluded. So the best time to look for a political solution to the case is now. This is the best time, and I am happy they are starting now. And if you recall, in the last administration, a highly respected group of Ohanaeze members visited the past administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, God rest his soul, and they pleaded with him for a political solution. You will recall that his statement was that the matter is before the court and out of his hands. Let the court decide first, then we'll see how we can come in and get it and find a solution to it. So we are happy the matter is ended now. Now is the time to look for a political solution, because when the executive is now approached for a political solution, the executive will no longer give the excuse that it is out of their hands and they don't want to interfere with judicial processes. And mind you, these three arms of government are supposed to be independent of each of the other. So now that the judiciary has done its own, the execution of that sentence is the responsibility of the executive. So the executive at this stage, you can say, like they say maybe in civil parlance, in civil service parlance, that the file is now before the executive. So now that the file has been brought before the executive can now look for a political solution now to it. And I am very optimistic.
All right, Barrister, let's talk about the Southeast in general and also talk about the most recent happenings, activities of ESN, activities of individuals that, the government termed as unknown gunmen, the killings that we continue to see the seat-at-home order that was a directive of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and so many vices in the southeast. We saw the arrest
Yeah.
of some IPOP commanders, about 9 of them who were linked to Simon Ekpa, who is now in jail in Finland. With all of these successes on the part of the federal government in arresting some of these key elements that are fueling, the insecurity in the southeast, don't you think that with this ruling, there might still be some foot soldiers who are still in the southeast that will be further aggravated by the ruling and would cause mayhem in the southeast more than we have seen?
Well, let me first correct. There are no few. This decision will unleash mayhem in the southeast. There are not just, in fact, with the decision, there are those who have been on the fence. Yesterday's decision will bring them out. They will take a side, and the side they will take will be a side perhaps against the federal government. And that is why I am one of those who hold the view that there is a need for a political and permanent solution to the entire saga. And what we need to do is, it is time for us to dialogue. Let us sit down, iron out whatever issues there are, particularly as it relates to the unity of this country. If Nigeria must remain a united, indissoluble country, then justice, fairness, and equity, which is primarily what Nnamdi Kanu and his group are actually been championing for. The call for Biafra, it is not a call for a separate country, if I may put it that way. What they are only calling for is that if you will not treat us fairly, if you will not treat us with justice, if there won't be any fairness in the entire system, then allow us to go. So what they need to do now, the time for us to sit down, iron out these differences, because it is very clear that we have fundamental differences as a nation. It is time for us to sit down, gather the different peoples that constitute this country, have a discussion, identify what these problems or challenges are, and look for solutions, lasting solutions to all of them. And I think part of the thing I think the government should also do, or part of the thing I think this decision has also presented, an opportunity is presented, which I think the government should also grab. And that opportunity is an opportunity for us to resolve the Nigerian question once and for all.
What is the
There is the
Nigerian
need
question?
for us to Nigerian is.
What is that Nigerian question?
The Nigerian question is simple. Who is a Nigerian? That is the Nigerian question.
Now, if we take it down history lane, right from the events that led up to the the Nigeria Biafra war, or what you might call the Nigerian Civil War in 1967 up until 1970, the pogroms, the killings, and all of that had led up to the event. Some Igbo people still share this sentiment that even though the war ended and then it was declared no victor or no vanquished, the Igbo people have still not been fully reintegrated, with so much respect and dignity into the Nigerian, system, the Nigerian community. And it appears as if the Igbo community is just here for the sake of being here and are not truly identified as Nigerians and do not enjoy the full privileges that other Nigerians enjoy. Is this correct?
It is absolutely correct. It is absolutely, and it is not just a few. It is the general opinion. 99.9% of the opinion in the Southeast is that the Southeast, despite the end of the Civil War, including the 3 R's that were declared by the government of General Gowon back then, the Igbos from 1970 till date are still fighting the civil war. You understand? I'm fighting the civil war. I don't mean in arms. What they were experiencing, the experiences they went through the civil war, they have not, it has not changed. And the general opinion is that even among those who are even not Igbos, if you ask those who perhaps try to remove their tribal, look at it from an objective lens, they will tell you no, that the way the Igbos are being treated in Nigeria is not fair, is not justiciable, and it is not equitable. That if we must heal the wounds of the civil war, there are lines we have to toe. That is the line of true and genuine reconciliation. And except we do that, then the Nigerian question will continue to hang over our heads.
Now let's talk about the idea of an Igbo presidency, something that the average Nigerian who is not Igbo and who is politically inclined looks at it as far-fetched. From your perspective, as an Igbo person who is educated, enlightened, politically exposed, is the idea of an Igbo presidency far-fetched? If you look at the trajectory, the last time there was a proper Igbo leadership in Nigeria was when the General Theophilus Omonakwe Aguiyi-Ironsi was head of state. And of course, we know the events that led up to that, his assassination, the counter coup, and all of that. Up until today, there has never been an Igbo man from the southeast as either head of state or president of Nigeria. Is this an achievable feat?
Well, in my own opinion, personal opinion, and I know I'm entitled to that, the problem of the Igbos is not the presidency. And without with every sense of responsibility, you may not agree with me, others may not agree, your viewers may not agree with me, but with every sense of responsibility, it is my opinion that Peter Obi won the last 2023 election. You understand? So if it were the presidency is for which it is for everybody to contest for the presidency. The only thing is that whoever has the widest appeal should be allowed to take that. But that is actually what the essence of democracy. A government where the generality comes, whoever they choose should be allowed to rule them. So that I don't think is the problem of the Igbo ones. I don't think that is what the Igbos are agitating for. What they are agitating for principally is that there must be the semblance of fairness, justice, and equity. That those principles must be enthroned in Nigeria. And once you do that, the average Igbo man does not care who is the president. They don't care who the Senate president is. What the Igbo man cares about is that we have a government that is equitable, a government that reflects justice.
All right, Barrister Anayo.
And fairness to everybody.
All right, it's quite a very
religion.
All right, it's quite a fine place to leave the discussion there. Anayo Adibe Esquire, we must thank you so much. It's been interesting having this discussion with you. We hope to have you in the studio next time to dissect more topical issues in the news. Thank you. Well, that has been Anayo Adibe Esquire, principal partner, Anayo Adibe and Partners, speaking to us on the most recent ruling, life sentence handed down to Nnamdi Kanu by Justice James Omotosho at the Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday.